We are going to move very quickly with this segment because the man we are talking to is very busy. He is the Lansing Mayor, the Democratic candidate for governor, and needs no further introduction at the moment. We have our expert panel, and we will, well, first of all, thank you for stopping by this morning.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Michael Patrick.
You've got the convention coming up. You've got a selection of a running mate coming up, so we appreciate the time.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. You have this august panel. I hope I don't ruin it.
Well, let's see. Let's start, Scott Danek, Trebilcock and Danek Financial.
Mr. Mayor, thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure.
I've thought for a long time that we need some real structural reform at the state level, and that we've basically, over the last, I'd say, 10 to 20 years, basically put Band-Aids over certain problems. The two that really jump out off the proverbial balance sheet are our unfunded liabilities for pension and health care. They currently total about $50 billion. I'm just curious, what would your plan be to tackle that?
Well, we have that. We have a similar issue, of course, in city government, and we've been able to deal with it. One way is to deal with it on the incoming end of it, to look at what we're offering our employees and make necessary adjustments so that we're not digging a deeper hole. That's one side of it. I do think that we have to honor obligations, especially to people at the end of their career, and retirees. I think that that's a covenant with retirees. We shouldn't change benefits once somebody has banked on that and is settled into their golden years. I think that those commitments should be honored. My goal as mayor in Lansing has been to keep taxes reasonable. We haven't raised taxes, and to tighten our belts. And we've done that and been able to meet our obligations, still get the work done of city government. And I try to keep everybody whole. You know, we've avoided layoffs, but we've also had some concessions, and including from myself. We started from the top, but my goal was to keep everybody whole, to not have to lay anybody off. Whether or not we could continue to do that, I don't know. But we also have to look at, you know, the level of benefits for incoming people. And even if you look at what's happened with the big three, you see two-tier packages, sometimes more, where because of today's economy, you're not able to offer the benefits as great as what was offered in the 70s and 80s.
I'm assuming that you're talking about state employees when you said tightening your belts. If you've tightened your belts and not laid anybody off, how have you tightened your belts?
Well, in a variety of ways. We've implemented a number of consolidations in the city of Lansing. We're not done. The number of departments, operational efficiencies, economies of scale. You know, and then you look at all the operations, like I'm sure you do in business. We had a few garages, including the Board of Water and Light. The Board of Water and Light is a city asset, so I've led the charge for looking at all of our city assets, saying, well, if the Board of Water and Light is fixing heavy trucks and we're fixing heavy trucks, maybe we could have one garage, and we're moving toward a combined garage.
And how do you combine things like that without laying people off? Because you obviously can't have all those people working in one place versus two.
Well, we've been very fortunate to be able to do it through attrition. City government is about 20% smaller, the bureaucracy, although we haven't lost one police officer or one firefighter, but we've been able to do it through attrition. When I first became mayor, for example, we had a print shop. And we had it was over in what was called the annex. So it didn't fit in City Hall. We were renting space in order to run a print shop. And when it came time when the printing equipment had gotten old and they wanted new equipment, I said, well, you know, is this something that we need to do? Is it a core function of city government? We determined that it wasn't. And that, too, we were able to fold those employees, reassign them over time with retirements, because every year you have some retirements. We simply didn't replace them. And we're able to retrain workers for what we needed them. So even though the bureaucracy is 20% smaller, we've kept the resources where they need to be. In fact, I have more police officers on the street today than when I first became mayor. One of the ways we did that was by changing shifts. You also look at the method of delivery of services. We used to have our officers on 3 8-hour shifts. We now have them on 2 12. Many departments around the country operate very efficiently with 2 12-hour shifts. It results in less overtime costs.
And you're doing that on a small scale in the city. Now, how would you expect to do that in the state?
Well, I believe past is prologue. I believe that if you want to know what a person's going to do, how they're going to operate, the best thing to do is to look at what they've done. It's one thing what they say, that's important, but also it's also telling what they've actually been able to accomplish. And in 5 years, I've been able to balance 5 budgets on time. while cutting $42 million in deficit without raising taxes. So that's what I've actually done in city government as the top person in city government. I think we can do that in state. I'm familiar with state government, having been a legislator. I know where some of the bodies are buried over there, and I think I'm obviously going to take that style and that approach. I also take the approach of getting the best possible people I can. I have a great cabinet. Very proud of my team, what they're able to do in economic development. With Bob Trezise and Jerry Ambrose as chief of staff and executive assistant. That alone is a story, Cheryl. You look at Jerry Ambrose. Jerry Ambrose, when he came to the city of Lansing, he took the place of 3 positions. He is essentially chief of staff, executive assistant, and chief financial officer. Those were 3 separate paid positions when I became mayor. I've got one now. He is sort of Superman, but that's just an example.
That's what you need.
We've had to really tighten our belts. That's what I'm talking about when I say tighten our belts.
We'll continue with Democratic candidate for Governor Virg Bernero in 4 minutes. It's Michael Patrick Shields, the Mid-Michigan businessman. We are with Democratic candidate for Governor Virg Bernero, and in the commercial break there, in fact, you almost wanted to ask a question of our business panel here. We brought them here to ask you questions, but you want to float something by them and get their opinion?
Sure, I appreciate that, Michael Patrick. I was saying, I want to get their view on my economic plans, and I have what's called the Michigan Main Street Agenda. One of the key components is a State Bank of Michigan to address the issue of lack of access to capital. Everywhere I've gone all over the state, I see examples and I'm told stories of small business people, entrepreneurs at different levels, some very accomplished, some just starting out, fledgling, who would like to, they have a great idea, a great invention, a great product, and they want to expand, cannot get a loan, no matter what their balance sheet is. And I'm talking about folks that have been around for a long time. They're telling me stories that even though they've had a great relationship with their bank, they've never missed a payment, they cannot get access to capital in order to grow. And so we're being robbed of our recovery here in Michigan. I've proposed the state bank like in North Dakota. I know for some it's a little scary, but North Dakota's done it for over 100 years. But the point is, this access to capital, we're being left for dead by the Wall Street banks. I know community banks and community credit unions would like to. They're often hamstrung. So the idea is the community bank would bolster, would support economic development activity. And that's one idea. Now, the president has a $30 billion loan package, small business loan package that he's trying to pass that has not been able to get through the Republican Senate. That's another thing I support. We need help now. My point is we need it now. Some people say, well, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, the markets may free up. How will we ever get a recovery in Michigan if small business and medium-sized business cannot get access to capital?
I have a question. How would it be funded, first of all? Where would the revenue come from and the loan amounts come from? And doesn't that somehow dovetail with what the MEDC currently does? Aren't they involved in doing lending to businesses?
To my knowledge, I mean, the MEDC may have a limited program, and if the president got this $30 billion loan package through, I think some of that would go through the state. And I think the state might have some limited fund. There was talk about a manufacturing fund, which I think is needed, like a strategic fund for manufacturing concerns in particular. One of the ways it could be funded, it would be capitalized, is, even in these tough times, municipalities and the state have money that they collect in taxes. And a lot of them, school districts, municipalities, invest them in Wall Street banks. The state of Michigan has over $1 billion invested with J.P. Morgan Chase in a demand deposit account. When J.P. Morgan Chase, specifically, the Detroit Free Press did a front page article about them calling in loans and not loaning to Michigan. So we're investing in Wall Street. We're putting municipal and city and state money in these Wall Street banks who are taking our money and going and making loans in other states and other countries, but specifically not in Michigan. That to me makes no sense. Why wouldn't we take our money and invest in ourselves? And I think we're going to have to, because I think they have written us off. They're not investing in us. We have to invest in ourselves. So that's one approach. That's one place where the corpus could come from. Some people have proposed that it could be done through a bond issue as well. The bank in North Dakota is wildly successful. It contributes about $30 million, in addition to the economic activity and economic spin-off that it's created, that it's been a catalyst for. It contributes $30 million a year in profit to the state coffers. So in 10 years, it's returned $300 million surplus, in essence, for the state budget. Whereas, and our budgets are in deficit. I mean, that's a good amount of money that could be invested back. And that's, again, in addition to the economic development. They provide low-interest loans to students, to homeowners, to business owners, to farmers. And again, here in Michigan, I've talked to people at every level of the economic strata, successful law firms, you name it, call centers, who would like to expand right now and can't. Most people don't operate on cash and carry, as you well know. And you have businesses that have cash flow issues, and their credit is drying up, and that's a huge issue of concern. In fact, on a recent business thing, a Kaufman business report, out of 10 issues listed, number 1 problem for business, obstacle to growth, was access to capital, and number 7 or 8 was taxes.
Craig Godfrey, quick question.
Yeah, so what do you feel needs to be done with the Michigan business tax to hopefully lower that and attract businesses?
Well,
to
the
states?
MBT surcharge has to be eliminated, and that's a job-killing tax. It singles Michigan out. We need a fair, equitable, and predictable tax structure for business. In Lansing, we have laid out the red carpet instead of the red tape for business. That's why we have the growth that we do. We've diversified the economy. We have IT, bioscience, high-tech, insurance, and advanced manufacturing growing. For the last 8 months, we've grown every month in manufacturing in Lansing. We're not giving up on advanced manufacturing either.
So you'd get rid of the surtax, but anything else that you?
The rest, I would be working with the business community to address the predictability, and we may come out with something more here shortly.
I have about 30 seconds left. What do you want the business people of Michigan to know about your candidacy and how you would govern?
Well, thank you, Michael Patrick. I want them to know that I'm not unidimensional, that I'm endorsed by the Lansing Regional Chamber of Commerce. I'm proud to have a lot of union endorsements. I'm also very proud to have the Lansing Regional Chamber of Commerce. I've had them with me in most every one of my races. When I ran for re-election for mayor, the State Chamber of Commerce endorsed me as well, because I understand that without business, there is no labor. You have to have a balanced approach. We have laid out the red carpet instead of the red tape here in Lansing, Michigan. We've done it. We're diversifying our economy. We're getting the job done. It's one thing to talk about balancing budgets, to talk about bipartisanship, to talk about governing. It's another to actually get the job done, as I have here in Lansing.
He is the Democratic candidate for governor. Thank you to everyone on our panel here. Virg Bernero, who is running for governor and is on his way. We'll talk again very soon. Thank you for being here.
Thanks so much.
We close the program by the founder, Suzanne Hewitt, saying,
That's a wrap. We're easy.